My wife told me she needed space to find herself, so I gave her a week alone at a cabin. On the 6th day, her sister accidentally posted a selfie, and he was in it. Same guy she promised was just a coworker. I packed her stuff before she even came back. What happened next was rather unbelievable. I will tell you everything. First, let me quickly thank you for your continuous support. This means a lot to us. If you enjoy the stories we share, kindly subscribe to this channel. It will be great if you can leave a comment on which city you are watching from. We might just give you a shout out in our next story. Today's special shout out goes to Simon Gray from New York. We are glad you enjoy our stories. Now let's go deeper into the story. I used to think love was about giving without question, about standing so firm in someone else's storm that you forgot you were getting soaked too. My name's Kevin. I'm 34, work in logistics, the kind of job where nobody notices what you do unless it goes wrong. That's fine, I never needed the spotlight. My wife, Mia, was the opposite. She had this way of walking into a room and pulling everyone's attention without even trying. She worked in marketing for a boutique wine company, always on her phone, always booking last-minute meetings or attending client events. We used to laugh about how different we were. I held it down at home, did the dishes, walked the dog, showed up for every family event, while she was the one chasing ambition. It worked until it didn't. The shift wasn't dramatic. There was no slam door or late-night shouting match. It was quiet, like a slow leak under the sink that you don't notice until the floor warps. She stopped looking at me during dinner. Her phone, always face down but buzzing. She started taking long walks alone. At first, I thought she was just stressed, so I tried harder. Cooked her favorite meals, picked up flowers on random Tuesdays, told her how proud I was of her. She'd smile, say thanks, and drift away again. I asked her if something was wrong. No, I'm just tired, she'd say. Work's been a lot. But it wasn't just work. It was me. Or maybe, more honestly, it was the absence of whatever spark she needed that I couldn't give anymore. The first time she mentioned the name, Aaron, it was casual. We were folding laundry and she was telling me about some big campaign she was working on. Aaron's really good at cutting through the fluff, she said, not even glancing up from her stack of towels. He's new but super sharp. I nodded, thinking nothing of it. I wanted to trust her. I wanted to believe we were just in a dry spell, and this was temporary. But over the next few weeks, his name came up more. Aaron and I had to stay late. Or, Aaron said something hilarious today. Or, Aaron's coming with me to the wine expo next month. I never said anything. I didn't want to sound insecure. I didn't want to be that husband. But even then, I could feel it. The way she lit up when she talked about him. The way she didn't when she talked about us. I brought it up once, gently. You and Aaron seem close, I said, trying to keep my tone even. She gave me a look, equal parts annoyed and defensive. He's just a coworker, she said quickly. Don't start that. I let it go, but not really. It sat in my chest like a weight I couldn't shake. 3 weeks later, she came home from work and told me she needed space. I've been feeling really off, she said, not meeting my eyes. Disconnected. I don't know who I am anymore. I asked her what that meant, and she said she didn't want a divorce. She just needed a week. Time alone to reset. Maybe at a cabin, she said. Somewhere quiet. Somewhere she could think. I didn't fight her. I didn't ask a million questions. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe we were still on the same side. So I helped her book a cabin up north. Nothing fancy, just a cozy spot near a lake. She hugged me before she left, her arms stiff, like she was holding on to an obligation instead of a man. The first day she was gone, I stared at my phone a lot. I told myself not to text her. She needed space, and I needed to respect that. But I kept checking anyway, like maybe she'd send a quick, thinking of you, or even just a photo of the lake. Nothing. Day 2, I cleaned the house top to bottom. Cooked dinner for one. Took the dog on a longer walk than usual. Still nothing. I told myself it was okay. She probably didn't have service. She was probably journaling, or reading, or meditating. The kind of soul-searching people post about on Pinterest boards. But by day 4, I couldn't lie to myself anymore. She had service. Her sister tagged her in an Instagram story the night before. Just a meme, but proof that her phone worked fine. On day 5, I went back and reread our last few messages. All short. Cold. Got here safe. Don't worry about me. I'll check in later. But later never came. That night, I sat at the kitchen table and realized I felt more alone with her in my life than I ever did before I met her. I'd been trying so hard to hold something together that she'd already let go of. And still, I hoped I was wrong. Still, I believed that maybe this space would remind her what we had. Day 6 proved me a fool. Her sister, Brittany, is the kind of person who posts everything. Brunches, outfits, random sunsets with Drake lyrics in the caption. That afternoon, she posted a selfie. Her, 2 wine glasses, and in the background, barely in frame but unmistakable, was Mia, sitting next to Aaron, his arm behind her on the bench. Her body leaned into him, like that's where she belonged. Like he was the comfort, the peace, the clarity she'd gone up there to find. She didn't even look guilty. She looked free. I didn't shout. I didn't call. I didn't rage text. I stood up, went to our closet, and started packing her things. I folded her clothes, stacked her shoes, took down the framed photos of our vacations, our wedding, our anniversaries. All the moments I thought were real. I moved them into a storage bin like they were props from someone else's life. I didn't cry. Not then. I didn't feel much of anything except a strange sort of calm, like watching a storm from behind glass. She wanted to find herself. I found my answer. That night, I left her a note. Short, sharp, final. Your things are packed. Don't come back pretending. I'm not the fool you thought I was. And for the first time in weeks, I slept like a rock. The silence was the hardest part. Not the kind that follows a fight, when the air is thick and bitter with things you both want to say but won't. No, this was different. This was intentional. Cold. Clean. The kind of silence that doesn't come from anger, but from absence. Mia didn't reach out after I packed her things. No text. No call. No knock on the door with tears in her eyes and excuses on her tongue. And maybe that should have made it easier. Maybe I should have taken it as a sign that I'd done the right thing. But instead, I found myself staring at her empty side of the bed and wondering when exactly I'd become so disposable to her. I kept running back the clock in my head, trying to trace the path from "I love you" to "I need space." It had to be somewhere in between the second promotion she got and the third client trip she took without telling me until the last minute. Or maybe it was the night I asked her what was wrong and she smiled without her eyes. I didn't want to admit it back then, but I could feel her slipping even when she was still beside me. She stopped humming in the kitchen, stopped reaching for my hand in the car. She used to rest her head on my shoulder while we watched TV. Then one day she sat on the other end of the couch, blanket pulled tight like a boarder. And I let it happen. I let her drift, thinking if I didn't push, she'd come back. What a fool I was. That week after the photo, I kept my head down. I worked overtime even when it wasn't needed. I reorganized the garage, pressure washed the driveway, cleaned out drawers I hadn't touched in years. The only thing I couldn't scrub was the ache in my chest. My phone stayed quiet. Not a word from Mia. Not even a weak apology or half-lie. I guess when someone's already chosen their escape, there's no need to explain the fire they left behind. The worst part? Her silence almost made me doubt myself. I kept wondering if I'd overreacted. If maybe they really were just sitting close, just talking, just coincidentally in the same cabin during her me time. But every time that thought crept in, I'd remember how she looked in that photo. Not caught, not nervous, just comfortable. Too comfortable. Like that wasn't the first time she'd leaned into him, and it wouldn't be the last. The only reason I even found out was because Brittany couldn't help showing off her wine and cheese. If not for that selfie, Mia would have come home, kissed me on the cheek, and told me how much she found herself among pine trees and sunsets. And I would have believed her. I would have welcomed her back. That thought made my stomach turn. On the third night after packing her things, I saw Brittany's name pop up on my phone. I stared at it for a while before picking up. "Hey," she said, voice small, unsure. "Look, I didn't know you didn't know about him." I swear I didn't mean to stir anything. I stayed quiet. What could I say? "I thought she told you," she continued. "Or that maybe you two were, like, figuring it out or something. She said she was going up there alone. But, yeah, obviously not." Her voice cracked a little. "I'm sorry, Kevin. You didn't deserve that." I wanted to tell her it was fine, that I appreciated the apology. But instead, I just said, "Thanks," and hung up. The next day, my mom called. Mia had spoken to her, told her we were going through a rough patch, and that she just needed time. My mother asked if I was okay. I told her I was. But my voice must have betrayed me, because she didn't believe me. "You're too good to be treated like that," she said. "You always have been. Too good." I'd heard that before, from friends, from coworkers, even from Mia in the early days. "You're the kind of man women regret losing," she'd once told me, lying on my chest after a long day. Funny how fast regret turns into rejection when temptation knocks. I went through our photo albums that night. Not the digital ones, the physical books we made together. Engagement shoot, wedding, honeymoon in Costa Rica, Christmases with her family, smiles that used to mean something. I stopped on one photo, her in the kitchen, wearing one of my old flannels, hair in a messy bun, holding a mug with both hands and laughing at something I'd said. She looked happy, safe. I stared at it so long the edges started to blur. That version of her was gone. And maybe that version of me was too. A part of me wanted closure, an explanation, something to pin this heartbreak on besides a vague, "I needed space." But the truth is, I already had my answer. That cabin wasn't a retreat, it was a test run. A soft exit from a marriage she'd already emotionally clocked out of. Maybe she was waiting to see how it felt. Maybe she thought she'd come back changed. But people don't find themselves in someone else's arms by accident. That's a choice. And once I saw her choice, I made mine. By day 7, the final day of her so-called retreat, I stopped waiting. I stopped wondering. I deleted our shared calendar, took down the sticky notes she used to leave on the fridge, folded up the throw blanket she loved, and tossed it in the donation bin. It was cleansing, in a way, like peeling off old wallpaper. The wall underneath was still solid, still mine. That night, I sat outside with a beer and watched the sun set without her. No thoughts, no tears, just peace, the kind I hadn't felt in a long time. And when the porch light flickered on, I didn't flinch or look toward the driveway. I wasn't waiting anymore. Mia was gone. And for the first time, I felt free. They say a picture is worth 1,000 words, but that one photo, cropped, blurred, unintentional, spoke every truth I hadn't wanted to hear. I didn't see it right away. It was buried in a series of stories Brittany posted, mixed in between snapshots of sangria glasses and cutesy cabin interiors. But there it was, clear as day, a background glimpse of Mia, half-turned, caught mid-laugh. Her posture said everything, relaxed, leaning into a man's body like it was home. And his arm, draped behind her on the bench, just close enough to kill any hope that it was innocent. Just close enough to confirm what I had been too afraid to say out loud. I stared at it for a long time, phone heavy in my hand. The filter Brittany used gave everything a warm, golden hue, like nostalgia wrapped in deceit. There was no caption, no tag, no clue that Brittany even realized what she'd done. But that was the worst part. That she didn't realize. That Mia wasn't hiding. That she felt safe enough, brazen enough, to sit there like she hadn't left a marriage waiting behind her. Like she wasn't still wearing my last name. My ring. My trust. My chest didn't heave. My eyes didn't sting. It wasn't rage that came first. It was numbness. A heavy, dead silence inside me, like someone had unplugged my heart and left it blinking in the dark. It wasn't just that she was with him. It was that she looked happy. Not confused. Not conflicted. Just gone. Like the woman who used to curl into my side and whisper, "I feel safest with you," had been replaced entirely. And the man next to her? Aaron. Just a coworker. The same guy I'd asked about, the one she dismissed with a scoff and a tight smile. She'd lied so cleanly, so easily, I'd started to believe I was the paranoid one. That's the cruelty of betrayal. It doesn't just hurt you. It makes you question every part of yourself that dared to trust. Every instinct you overrode. Every late night, gut feeling you buried because love told you to believe. I thought about every night she'd come home late. Every time she'd answered her phone in another room. Every weekend she'd needed rest. And suddenly, it all snapped into place like a puzzle I never wanted to solve. This wasn't new. This wasn't spontaneous. This was planned. And I had been an unwitting placeholder, holding space for a woman who'd already left. I zoomed in, like some part of me needed to see the details, maybe to find a sliver of hesitation in her expression, some flicker of remorse that could soften the blow. But there was nothing. Just her, in one of those flannel jackets I'd bought her last Christmas, head tilted toward him like he was gravity, like she'd already chosen. So I did the same. I didn't scream, didn't throw my phone across the room like they do in the movies. I just stood up, walked to the guest room where I'd stacked her boxes, and added one more, her framed photos from our hallway, our wedding portrait, the trip to Sedona, the anniversary dinner at that rooftop restaurant she swore she loved. All of it, into a box labeled with a Sharpie. Take your lies with you. It wasn't for her. It was for me. Closure in cardboard. By the time she texted me, finally, on day 7, it was laughable. A simple heading home. Can we talk? Like the last week had been a reset button. Like we were two people just slightly out of sync, not shattered by the truth. I didn't respond. Instead, I went for a drive. No destination. Just the open road and the sound of silence. Because even music felt too intimate. I passed the diner we used to go to on Sunday mornings, the one where she always ordered banana pancakes and made fun of my dad coffee. I drove past the park where we'd walked our dog and argued about baby names. I realized how many of my memories had her baked into them, and how few of hers, apparently, included me at all. I pulled over at an overlook about 30 miles out. Just sat there, staring at the horizon. The sun was dipping low, staining the sky with oranges and purples, and for a second, it hit me how long I'd been surviving on hope. How long I'd been stretching myself thin, trying to keep something alive that she'd already buried. I remembered the way she used to look at me, like I was home. Safe. Enough. And now, that look belonged to someone else. A man who, I imagine, never had to ask twice for her attention. That night, I left her a note on the front door. I didn't want to see her. Didn't want to hear her spin a story she'd probably rehearsed the whole drive back. I wanted her to face the consequence of her choices without the comfort of my silence. It read, "Your stuff is packed. Spare key is gone. Don't knock." No signature. No goodbye. Just fact. She texted again around 9:42 p.m. Kev. Please. Let's talk. It's not what you think. I didn't answer. Because it was what I thought. And more importantly, it was what I saw. A man can forgive a lot of things. But he can't unsee the moment he became optional. That picture, cropped, fleeting, unintentional, gave me more truth than she ever did. And it was enough. She showed up the next morning, right after sunrise. I heard her car before I saw it. Engine humming low as it rolled into the driveway like a thief returning to the scene of the crime. I didn't move from the kitchen table. Just watched from the window, coffee in hand, heart steady. She stepped out wearing those same leggings she always traveled in, a sweatshirt too big for her shoulders. Probably mine, though I didn't care to check. Her hair was tied up in that lazy bun she used to wear when we were comfortable, when we were us. And for a moment, just a flicker, I saw the woman I used to love standing there. But it passed, because that woman didn't come home from finding herself with another man's scent on her skin. She hesitated at the door. I could tell by the way her hand hovered near the handle. She'd seen the note. She knew the key wouldn't work. But she still knocked, soft, uncertain, like she wasn't sure what version of me she'd get. I let her knock 3 times. Each one weaker than the last. Then I opened the door, not wide, just enough for her to see my face, to know I wasn't hiding, but I wasn't welcoming her in either. "Kevin," she said, like a prayer or a wound. "Please." I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. She blinked like she wasn't expecting that. Maybe she thought I'd invite her in, let her explain, sit across from her while she crafted a narrative where she was confused, lost, emotionally overwhelmed. But I'd lived that scene in my head too many times, and I was done playing audience to her performance. "You want to talk?" I said calmly. "Talk." She swallowed hard. It wasn't what it looked like. I actually laughed at that. Not out of humor, more like disbelief. "Mia," I said slowly, "don't insult me. Not now. I swear," she continued, voice cracking, eyes already glossing over. I went up there to think, to breathe. And he showed up. He knew I was going. Brittany must have told him, and I didn't plan it. I didn't invite him. "But you let him stay," I replied, sharp and clean. "You didn't tell him to leave. You didn't call me. You didn't think, 'Hey, Maybe I shouldn't let my coworker spend the night while my husband's at home thinking I'm trying to fix our marriage. You just went with it. Because that's who you are now. She shook her head, tears sliding down her face. I didn't sleep with him, she said quickly. I swear to you. Nothing happened. We talked. That's all. And maybe that was true. Maybe they didn't cross the line in the way people define it. But to me, the line wasn't physical. It was emotional. It was letting someone else into the space I'd spent years trying to protect. It was giving her intimacy to another man while I was here, waiting, believing in her. It doesn't matter, I said flatly. You gave him the part of you that used to be mine. She reached for my arm. I stepped back. Kevin, please, she whispered. I made a mistake. I didn't know how far gone I was until I got there and realized what I was risking. I thought I needed space. I thought I was empty. But I wasn't. I was just tired. Of everything. Of myself. Not you. Never you. Those words might have gutted me a few weeks ago. Back when I still believed this was salvageable. But now? Now they felt like static. Empty vibrations from a voice I no longer trusted. I looked at her. Really looked at her. And I didn't see my wife. I saw a woman who ran from discomfort instead of facing it. Who took the easy way out instead of doing the hard work. Who only realized what she had after she'd already set it on fire. I'm not your safety net, I told her. I'm not the backup plan when clarity doesn't work out the way you hoped. I'm not asking to pretend this didn't happen, she said, her voice breaking apart. I'm asking for a chance to fix it. Therapy. Counseling. Anything. I'll do whatever it takes. Please, Kevin. Please don't throw us away. I stared at her for a long time. I thought about the years we shared. The good days. The inside jokes. The way she used to laugh with her whole body when I danced like a fool in the kitchen. I thought about the woman who used to hold my hand under the table during family dinners. The one who made up songs for the dog and sang them like they were Billboard hits. And then I thought about the photo. About Erin. About the silence. About her choice. I didn't throw us away, I said finally. You did. The second you let him stay. The second you let me sit at home thinking you were working on us while you were building something new with him. That was your call. She didn't argue. Maybe she knew there was nothing left to fight with. I still love you, she said, tears falling now, raw and open. I believe you, I replied. But love doesn't excuse betrayal. She stood there a moment longer, shoulders trembling, lips parted like she had one more plea inside her. But I didn't give her the space to speak it. I turned, opened the door, and stepped back into my house alone. She didn't follow. That night, she sent a message. A long one. Said she'd move out by the weekend. Said she was sorry. Said she'd always wonder what would have happened if she'd made a different choice. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Some things are too sacred to be salvaged after they've been broken. The fallout didn't hit all at once. It came in waves. Subtle at first, like the distant rumble of a storm you're sure will pass. Then louder. Closer. Unavoidable. Word got out fast, not because I told anyone, but because Mia did. Or maybe Brittany. Either way, it didn't stay between us. Within a few days, I started getting texts from mutual friends. Some short and awkward. Hey, man, heard about you and Mia. Sorry. Others had the gall to ask for details, like they were watching our marriage unravel through a peephole and just needed better lighting. One even had the audacity to say, relationships are hard. Maybe you guys just need to talk it out. I didn't answer any of them. Then came the family. Her mom called first, voice thick with nerves. She didn't outright defend Mia, but her tone made it clear she thought I should have been more understanding. She was overwhelmed, she said. She's been under a lot of pressure lately, with work and everything. You know how she gets when she feels cornered. As if pressure was a justification. As if everything was a good enough reason to sit in a cabin with another man while her husband sat home thinking she was finding her way back to him. I didn't argue. I just said, this isn't up for debate, and hung up. She didn't call back. A few days later, Mia's dad texted me. You're still family to me. Just wanted you to know that. I appreciated that more than I expected to. He'd always been the quieter parent, the one who watched dynamics from the corner of the room and only spoke when he had something worth saying. I didn't respond, but it meant something. I saved that message. Still haven't deleted it. My own family, on the other hand, was a different story. My sister, Lauren, was livid. I knew something was off with her, she said during our weekly call. She always acted like you were the lucky one. But she's the one who fumbled. Lauren never liked Mia much. Thought she was too career-obsessed, too polished, not warm enough. But even so, I could tell she was more angry on my behalf than smug about being right. "You're not going to take her back, are you?" she asked, voice hard. I told her no. She exhaled, sharp and relieved. "Good. Because that woman doesn't deserve to breathe the same air as you." It wasn't about revenge for me. It wasn't about making her hurt or feel what I felt. It was about something quieter, more final. Boundaries. Dignity. I wasn't going to beg for loyalty. I wasn't going to fight for scraps of trust. Once someone shows you who they are, who they're willing to be when no one's watching, you don't unsee it. And I had seen enough. She came back that weekend to get her things. I wasn't home. I made sure of it. I didn't want to see her walking through our house like a visitor. Didn't want to hear the drawers opening, the faint clatter of hangers as she took back her pieces of our life. I didn't want to see her face as she looked around for the last time, maybe remembering the good parts. I didn't need that. I had already done my remembering. She left a note on the counter. Not long, just 2 paragraphs. Said she didn't expect forgiveness, but hoped one day I'd find peace. Said she hoped I'd fall in love again. That I deserved that. I didn't cry. I didn't even read it twice. I folded it neatly, placed it in the drawer where I kept old receipts and warranty manuals, and never looked at it again. What hurt the most, weirdly enough, wasn't the betrayal. It was realizing how many people thought pain was a reason to compromise. "You shouldn't throw away something just because it's cracked," one friend messaged me. I wanted to scream. It wasn't cracked. It was willfully shattered. There's a difference. There's a chasm between a rough patch and a conscious choice to lie, to sneak, to sit shoulder to shoulder with someone else while your marriage drowns in silence. People kept trying to frame it as a mistake. But mistakes are spilled drinks and missed appointments. What Mia did was a decision. Still, there were a few who got it. My buddy James came over with a 6-pack and sat with me in silence for the first 30 minutes. Then he said, "You're handling this like a man, not a martyr. That's rare." I didn't feel rare. I felt wrecked. But I appreciated it. He didn't ask for the full story. He didn't offer platitudes. He just sat there, drank his beer, and let me be. And that, more than any advice, helped me breathe. I started going on longer walks. At first, just around the block. Then down to the park, where couples strolled hand in hand and kids shrieked from the playground. It stung, seeing all of that. A version of what I thought I had. But over time, the sting faded into something else. Not bitterness, just clarity. I started journaling again, something I hadn't done since college. Wrote pages about what I'd tolerated, what I'd overlooked, what I'd forgiven before there was even an apology. I saw myself more clearly than I had in years. Not as a victim, but as someone who finally stopped bargaining with people who didn't see his worth. The last time Mia reached out, it was through a friend. She wanted to know if we could just meet for coffee. Closure, she called it. I didn't respond. Because closure isn't something someone gives you. It's something you claim for yourself, quietly, when you realize the door doesn't need slamming. Just locking. I changed the locks 2 days later. Not out of anger. Out of peace. I didn't expect healing to feel like silence. Not the heavy, suffocating kind I'd endured when Mia left for that cabin, but a lighter, deeper kind of quiet. The kind that doesn't feel empty, but clear. It started with mornings. Waking up without tension in my chest. No longer checking my phone first thing, hoping for a message that would somehow make it all okay again. Just waking up, making coffee, sitting on the back porch, and listening to the birds, to the wind, to myself. It was strange at first. I'd been so used to chasing peace through chaos, through trying harder, through giving more of myself to someone who had already turned their back. Now, I was just still. And in that stillness, I began to hear the parts of me I'd buried trying to hold everything together. I went back to the cabin 2 months later. Not our cabin. God knows I could never look at that place the same. But a different one, farther north. One I found on a random Tuesday night when I couldn't sleep and just started scrolling. It wasn't fancy. Just a small wooden structure by a lake, with enough trees around it to drown out the rest of the world. I drove up there alone. No plan, no agenda. Just a suitcase and a notebook. The road was long and winding, but with every mile, I felt something loosen in my chest. Like I was putting distance between the version of me that clung and the one that let go. The first night in that cabin, I built a fire and sat in front of it with a blanket draped over my legs like my grandfather used to do. I didn't touch my phone, didn't scroll, didn't check anyone's social media to see who was still watching me bleed. I just stared at the flames and let myself remember. Not just the pain, but the moments that led to it. The subtle betrayals. The ways I'd been shrinking myself to keep her comfortable. I remembered biting my tongue when she made me feel small in front of friends. I remembered all the nights I pretended I didn't notice her texting with her screen turned away from me. And I remembered the gut feeling I ignored because I loved her too much to follow it. That night, I wrote something in my journal that changed me. I forgive myself for trusting her, but I will never betray myself like that again. The next morning, I went hiking. Found a trail behind the cabin that led to a quiet overlook. It was misty, the air sharp with pine and cold. I stood there, looking out at the endless stretch of green and sky, and I thought about who I'd become. Not broken, not bitter, just real. The kind of man who could survive heartbreak without hardening. The kind who could walk away from someone he loved without turning that love into hate. It's a strange kind of strength, you know, one that doesn't roar but endures. People think moving on means getting angry, finding someone new, proving your worth. But sometimes it just means standing still and realizing you never needed to be proven right. You just needed to remember who you were before someone else convinced you to forget. When I got back to town, things felt different. The streets were the same, the neighbors waved like always, but I was different. I didn't avoid the coffee shop Mia and I used to frequent. I walked right in, ordered my regular, and sat at the same table where we once planned vacations and baby names. There was no ache, just acceptance. I wasn't rewriting history. I remembered the good times. But I no longer saw them as a reason to mourn. I saw them as a chapter, one I'd read, learned from, and now closed with care. A few weeks later, I ran into Brittany at the grocery store. She looked uncomfortable, like she expected me to ignore her or lash out. But I didn't. I nodded, said hello, kept moving. She caught up to me near the frozen foods. I wanted to say I'm sorry again, she said softly. Not just for the photo. For everything. I should have said something sooner. I knew something wasn't right. I looked at her and said, "You did say something. You just didn't mean to." That made her laugh, just a little. I could tell she wanted to ask more, maybe about how I was really doing, but she didn't. She just said, "You look good, Kevin. Like you're okay." I smiled. I am. I didn't date for a while. Not out of fear, but out of respect for myself. I wanted to make sure I wasn't trying to fill a void, wasn't looking for distraction. I needed to rebuild a life that wasn't defined by someone else's presence. So I took up woodworking again, joined a weekend basketball league, started cooking for real, not just heating up leftovers. My home started to feel like mine, not an echo of what used to be, but a canvas for what could come next. Mia never tried to come back again. After that one text through a friend, she went quiet. I don't know if she moved on. Don't care. Whatever life she built from the ashes of ours, she's welcome to it. I hope it's honest. I hope it's better. But her story is no longer mine to carry. The last entry I wrote in my journal before closing it for good was this: losing her didn't break me. It reminded me I was never meant to bend that far for someone else in the first place. And that's the truth. Some betrayals don't deserve a second chance. They deserve distance, peace, and your silence. If you've ever been lied to so well you started questioning your own gut, you're not alone. Drop your story in the comments. How did you find yourself after someone else lost you? Let's talk about what it means to choose healing over closure. See you soon in the next story.